Right here.
Action makes it durable. And because it's a Craftsman hand tool, made in America, it's guaranteed forever.
For rush delivery of your Craftsman pocket socket, get your Sears charge or other credit card ready and call 1-800-219-5577. That's 1-800-219-5577. Or send your check or money order for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Call 1-800-219-5577 right now.
Ahead on WeatherScope, today's forecast for weather across the nation. A complete look coming up on WeatherScope right after your local forecast. This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on, only on the Weather Channel.
WeatherScope. Bitter cold temperatures with wind chills up to 40 and 50 degrees below zero leave the eastern half of the country shivering. And in the west, a new storm system is bringing the rain back to the northwest, along with a threat of flooding and mudslides. Those stories, plus in-depth forecasts and analysis on today's edition of WeatherScope.
Good morning, I'm Mark Mancuso, and I have some bad news for you guys in the Northwest because there could be some more trouble headed your way as stormy weather in the Pacific brings more rain to the region. You know, this whole area is just recovering from flooding and mudslides from earlier rains. More on that in just a moment. But first, we want to update you on the brutal cold that's gripping the eastern half of the country. Cheryl Lemke has all the details in the Forecast Center. Good morning, Cheryl.
Thanks, Mark, and a good Friday morning. Well, again, much of the country waking up to some harsh wintry conditions. We have bitter cold temperatures, some gusty winds, and some dangerously cold wind chills. And even the southeast is getting into the act. Yesterday, we had temperatures across Georgia that were actually colder than some spots in Alaska. And that cold air continues to filter to the south all the way down to Florida this morning. So definitely, most of the country in the throes of old man winter. Let's check out some of those current temperatures around the country. It is brutal. Teens in 20s all the way down into the Florida Panhandle this morning. And then look at that, a large chunk of real estate seeing sub-zero temperatures. They're running from northern New England and the St. Lawrence Seaway on into the Ohio Valley and all the way back towards the upper Midwest. Very, very cold temperatures, and in many respects, it's the coldest air yet this season, especially in the Northeast. Again, temperatures this morning quite nasty. It's only 14 degrees for Boston, 15 around Brooklyn and Queens, New York. How about the nation's capital? Down to 13 degrees this hour, -8 for Chicago, -11 for Des Moines, Iowa, and more sub-zero temperatures too from St. Louis up towards Minneapolis. Well, the temperatures are cold all by themselves, but we have some very brisk winds as well. Strong winds continue to buffet most of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. We've had some very blustery conditions, too, for North and South Carolina, even on into Georgia. Some of the winds this morning are gusting between 25 to about 45 miles an hour. And those strong winds are definitely putting a bite in the air. Check out the wind chills. They are quite nasty. Right now, it feels like 27 below zero for Boston. Feels like 36 below for Burlington, Vermont. Feels like 39 degrees below zero for Buffalo. And look at that, some of the wind chills in the upper Midwest now between 50 and 60 below zero. We can't overemphasize the point that with temperatures this cold, it's just a matter of minutes before frostbite and hypothermia can set in. So please dress very warmly for today. Wear several layers of warm clothing and cover up all exposed flesh because you definitely don't want to get any frostbite. That's definitely a very serious situation. Well, as that cold air continues to flow in across the Great Lakes, it's been triggering some very heavy lake effect snows. And one area especially hard hit has been Michigan. This was a scene yesterday just south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Blowing snow produced whiteout conditions along Highway 131 near Wayland. Winds were gusting up to about 35 miles an hour, and along with that, temperatures dropped into the single digits. And again today, the area could get pummeled by more locally heavy snows, and the high at best only about 10 degrees later today up around Wayland, Michigan. So we've got some really nasty conditions there, and definitely we've had some nasty weather too across the Northeast. If you recall, over the weekend we had some heavy lake effect snows around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. And with me this morning on the phone we have Mr. Steve McLaughlin. He's a meteorologist at the National Weather Service up in Buffalo, New York. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Now lately, at least over the weekend, we had a real cold spell, and most of that cold air seemed like it kind of dove all the way down to Texas. But now with this latest cold spell, some of it's kind of migrating towards the east. So how would you compare this latest cold surge with what we had previously?
Well, this cold surge is more directly out of Canada. The last one went down into the plains, as you said, and it came at us from the back door, so to speak, and up the south and the southwest. This one's coming directly down at us, so the cold is much more intense this time in this area. We have temperatures near zero this morning with winds of 20 to 30 miles an hour, giving us wind chills of 30 to 40 below in spots, and that's resulted in a lot of school closures and some problems in the area.
Now, we've also seen some lake effect snows up there around Buffalo and around the Syracuse and Rochester area. And how would you compare this latest lake effect snow event with what we've seen previously?
Well, it has not been quite as intense as of yet. The flow has been from the northwest, so the fetch off Lake Erie has been much smaller. So areas south of Buffalo have had maybe 4 to 6 inches, a few spots 8 inches. But off Lake Ontario, we've had a very strong single band. Now it's meandering across Oswego County, and we've had snowfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour in that band. So far it hasn't been as intense as last weekend, but we do expect some problems to increase later on today.
Yeah, how have the travel